Now, take two. Now we go to Mr. Sicher.
Thank you. This question is for candidate Saar. Although a national issue, do you feel that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a role in helping out the foreclosure situation within the state and the county?
Well, I do, and actually there's probably going to be some agreement between myself and Mr. Cox on this, because one of the greatest challenges, and it's not the sole driver of the foreclosures in our area, is the high property tax that we pay. So I'm going to take this opportunity to give you, we're going to agree that property tax is a significant problem across the state. It's a really, really big problem in the county of Berks. My opponent, of course, is the lead sponsor of HB 1776 to entirely eliminate property tax. We have heard in Berks County for over 20 years now that the only solution is that we have to entirely eliminate property taxes. And I think that would be a great idea if there was a way to do it. But unfortunately, I'm the only candidate across this county that's going to be straightforward and say to you it can't be done. And here's why. My wife and I sat down when I chose to run for this race, and she said to me, you have to find a way, if you're going to run for office, you got to be straightforward and be honest with people. So I said, look, I'm going to be the one person. We've heard Democrats earlier tonight that say they're going to sponsor it. Over and over again, we hear the same line, but we don't see any results. In fact, my opponent sponsored this bill. He never asked for it to be reviewed initially. Senator Schwenk asked for it to be reviewed. He's worked on it for 6 years, actually closer to 20 years the whole time he's been here, and we come to find out it falls over $2 billion short of funding public schools. The fact of the matter is, the money's not there, and no one's being straight with the taxpayer. But there's a lot of things we can do, and when I rebut, I'll get to them, to actually provide immediate and direct relief to folks who need it.
I do ask the audience members to please keep their comments to themselves. You can talk to the candidates outside afterwards if you'd like to. Representative Cox?
Can I ask the gentleman to repeat the question? I want to make sure I focus on it. I think this gentleman got far afield from the question, perhaps.
Although a national issue, do you feel the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has a role in helping out the foreclosure situation within the state and county?
The foreclosure issue is one, as everybody in this room probably has a great understanding of, and many probably more so than I, depending on their profession. But a lot of what we saw with the foreclosure situation is individuals entering into a situation where they don't have the means to pay for what they're obligating themselves to. Unfortunately, we see local governments, school districts, state government, and even our federal government doing the same type of thing. And so as we have continued to encourage lending and things like that from the federal level down, and on the state level, we've done the same thing. We've tried to make homeownership available through different programs offered through the state. The foreclosure situation came about not because of something that any one state or any one entity did. It was a mindset of biting off more than you can pay for, in essence. And so on a state level, I think one of the things we can do is to help rein in school district spending, help rein in local government spending. It's that mentality that we've got to address. It's the mentality of we can pay for everything, and somewhere down the line we'll figure out a way to do it. You and I don't budget that way on a personal level. You and I don't have an infinite level of money available to us, and people are finding out now that there is no such thing as government money. It all comes from the taxpayers. My job in Harrisburg is to prevent taxpayers from being gouged over and over again, and when a question focusing on the property tax comes up, I'll be sure to share some input on that.
Jeff, one of the reasons I said that there's other solutions, and that I've said in the past, and I'll say again tonight, that I find hard to take my opponent seriously when it comes to providing real relief, is because there's been measure after measure proposed in the legislature to actually provide relief. That while we worked on this plan, maybe it has to do with the fact we only work 70 days a year in Harrisburg, they were ignored. For example, the Marcellus shale impact fee. There was a bill that said, let's direct some of that money, let's expand the fee. By the way, most of that Marcellus shale gas actually goes to China. Even though it makes sense for us to help the industry develop, it's not as though you're going to pass this tax on to the Pennsylvania taxpayer. So we said, let's take some of that money and provide property tax relief. That was opposed by my opponent. We said years ago, it's fallen woefully short when Governor Rendell introduced casinos, but at least it provided some money for some senior citizens and folks who really needed it. That was opposed by my opponent. Additionally, there are all sorts of alternative plans that we can look at. The state of Virginia has a plan. And this does go to your foreclosure issue, because I fully understand and agree with Representative Cox that it's a significant problem to have folks losing their home, especially in their senior years. The state of the state of Virginia actually begins to phase out property tax for senior citizens at the age of 65 if they're living on a fixed income. All of those things are things we have to explore. It's a real problem to be addressed, but it's not going to solve itself when we can't even get a bill out of committee that we've worked on for 20 years that falls woefully short of funding public schools. It's just not going to work.
1 minute.
I don't know where to start. I will start with saying that just because we are not in Harrisburg any more than 70 days a year does not mean that we do not work. I have a district office that works very hard, usually dealing with cutting bureaucratic red tape for constituents. And if any of you have ever called my office, you'll see that we are very efficient in helping to do that. So we are open, I can't say 365 days a year. We do close weekends and holidays, but we have a very active presence in the district, and we will continue to do so. I also need to correct here that I was not even in office when the slots legislation was passed. That was passed with different legislation across 04 and then 06. I came into office in 07, so I didn't have the opportunity to vote on that. The Marcellus shale impact fee, he touched on why we didn't take and put money toward property tax relief. If the property tax relief had been addressed in such a way that the local communities where the shale wells are drilled would receive that in the form of an impact benefit, if you will, that would be fine. But the concept behind a fee is that it is focused on the impact in a local area. It is very user-defined, and it is a narrow way of collecting revenues from those who are impacting an area and distributing it to the areas of the community and the Commonwealth, such as the environment, where you have a broader impact. We've not been working on this for 20 years. The bill was first introduced in 2005, 2006. The bill I have introduced has had vast changes since 2005 and 2006. The problem is we have never had a vote on the legislation in its full form. I'm fighting the same thing he's fighting, and that is big government, and it's the party that is in power. My leadership won't run the bill right now. We're going to try to make changes going forward to get it done.
I just want to be clear and make it, I do have a moment to respond, right? Or is that it?
I think we already did the
Okay,
rebuttals
no,
back and
no
forth.
problem. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, I do not.